Welcome, and thanks for joining us today for today's webinar, AI in Action. As implied in the title, we're here today to lift the hood a little bit on what businesses are actually doing with AI, both at product and engineering level. Hopefully today you'll get some insights into that, as well as hear some discussion on successful implementation, what the gains have been, hear some reflections and advice from our lovely guests today. Just before we get into intros, if you do have any questions, please pop them in the chat. We'll have some time at the end to look at those, unless there are any that are sort of immediately interesting, pertinent to the flow of conversation. If we don't come back to you, we will follow up offline. There will also be some polls through this discussion, so please do engage with those. We'd be very keen to hear your thoughts. But before we sort of set the scene a little bit, just a quick round robin of intros. My name is Tim Fay. I'm your host today. I'm on the account management team here at One Beyond. I work with businesses across sectors on a whole variety of projects and products. Very happy to be joined today by two representatives from those businesses, namely LCH and Haven, who many of you will know, as well as our very own Vic Tabram, who I'll pass the mic to now for an intro. Hello, Vic.
Thanks, Tim. Morning, everyone. So, as Tim said, my name's Vic, head of product at One Beyond. So we cover off the discovery sessions and have a team of product owners and UX designers and solutions architects to understand what you need as a business and turn that into reality. Been at One Beyond for 6 years now, and it's very exciting at the moment. So yeah, nice to meet everyone.
Thanks, Vic. So over to you, Paul or Martin. Martin.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Martin Henderson from LCH and the head of operations here. At LCH, we provide replacement vehicle solutions right across the country, supporting prestige manufacturers, roadside assistance providers, and a few accident management companies. Fundamentally, over the last couple of years, we've expanded our business quite significantly, and we were asking ourselves some questions about how we can continue to grow the business, how we can continue to provide the very best customer experience and increase efficiencies without just simply adding more headcount to achieve that goal.
Thanks a lot, Martin. Over to you, Paul.
Great. So I was prepared to talk about me. I wasn't prepared to talk about Haven. So let's start with me and see if I can get onto Haven. So I'm an engineering team lead. I'm on the checkout squad, which means my team is responsible for taking your money after you've chosen the holiday and trying to sell you extra things. At Haven, obviously, primarily we provide holidays at many of our, well, all of our parks, but at one of our many parks. And we also operate an ownership model. So you can come and put your own caravan. Well, we sell you the caravan. You can come put a caravan that you own on our site and then rent that out if you want to as well.
Great. Thanks, Paul. So I guess before we get into hearing your stories, just to kind of set the scene a little bit, over the past few years, we've seen AI kind of move from an emergence of technologies and a source of experimentation to much more of a genuine business priority. In my role, I'm obviously speaking to a range of clients on what they're doing with AI, and there is definitely pressure to do something at every level, leveraging AI to streamline business processes or lessen friction where possible. I mean, at the lighter end, that might be the purchase of an enterprise license to ChatGPT or similar to kind of assistantize, is that even a word, and streamline general admin tasks. Something I'm seeing a lot of currently, and perhaps unsurprisingly, are clients reviewing their legacy platforms, identifying where AI could be integrated to streamline processes or generate more efficiency. And Martin will be exploring your excellent example of this with HireHub, which is obviously the fleet management system that we've worked on with you for a long while. In other cases, people are experimenting with AI app builders by traditionally non-technical teams, and that's something that's already changed the game in terms of prototyping and removing certain barriers to entry. Or it might be, Paul, and I'm looking at you, a larger company with its very own software function. Yep. Devising strategy for AI augmented development flows, as well as AI features and products themselves. And we'll really look forward to hearing from you about that. But Martin, if we sort of kick off with you then, We've obviously worked, as I mentioned, for a long while on the development of HireHub, which is the fleet management system over there at LCH. So with AI in mind, what brought you to that decision? Why did you decide to invest in AI for LCH?
Sure. So I think the key for us was the decision wasn't driven by technology for technology's sake. We recognised that our customer experience team was spending a significant amount of time doing sort of repetitive tasks and a lot of administration. And this isn't really where that team's greatest strength and value add is. Things like processing documents, skipping between different screens, or even multiple systems, processing driving license checks and DVLA checks all take a lot of time. And actually, we identified quite quickly that there was an opportunity to do that with a bit of automation and a bit of AI. Obviously, these tasks, as I say, are essential to our business for a number of reasons, but actually it was those elements that we felt that we could sort of better use our people to engage with customers and deliver that great experience without having to be too tied up doing the repetition of admin. Sorry, as you said, just to fundamentally work harder, work smarter rather than harder, really.
Yeah, and what were the sort of business challenges that you were trying to address with that whole piece?
So it was sort of three main pieces. There was scalability, so when the business grows, there was speed and accuracy, and there was customer experience, as I say. So the scalability, historically, when we've seen the business grow over the years, what we've ended up doing is adding an extra headcount, and we wanted to really try and break that cycle and try and find a sort of more automated operator model. The speed and accuracy element was that many of the processes were, as I say, manual intervention that can then lead to data entry errors. And the faster people go, the more prone they are to making mistakes. So that was an area that we wanted to really use technology to help us. And thirdly is that customer experience piece, as I say, really making sure that in the nature of our business, customers are unexpectedly breaking down. They're then without a vehicle, and speed is of the essence to get them back on the road and mobile with a brand for brand replacement as quickly as possible. And that is quite often quite problematic, and it really needs time to come up with bespoke, tailored solutions. And that's where we wanted our people to spend more time on that, as opposed to, as I say, processing, documentation, and elements that could be automated.
No, that's great. And how has the AI sort of improved operational efficiency and customer experience?
So it's enabled us, I mean, as I say, growth has been quite significant in our business last couple of years. Last year, we saw 25% growth, and we've achieved that without adding what would typically be, for that level of growth, about another 2 customer service heads. So it has been impactful. It just enables the virtual agent, aka our bot, but the virtual agent can do things without fatigue, without having the challenge of potentially being distracted or whatever, and therefore that really has helped.
No, that's great. I guess if we sort of switch the floor to you then, Paul, in terms of the story with the products you're building over at Haven.
Yep. So we're on a drive to get people more engaged when they're on park at the moment. So various things like the activities they can do, which range from everything from making slime for kids to archery and swimming and various other activities. And we also want to increase engagement with dining at our various restaurants and with entertainment in the evenings and bingo during the day and that sort of thing. So one of the teams has done is they've written something they've called Smart Planner, which after you've created your holiday goes and looks at what you like to do if you've been to our parks previously, then we've recorded what you've done and that sort of thing in a third-party application we've got called SmartSeer, which can also make recommendations. So we use information from SmartSeer, and we look at what you've already got booked and those sorts of things, and then we use Smart Planner to make suggestions about what else it is you might like to do on park. So it takes all the information that it can gather and it slots things into your itinerary. And then it gets more information from other places, and it makes sure that what it's suggesting is valid. Opening time is the appropriate sort of venue for whatever requirements you have as a guest. And So obviously we're using AI for that. We've plugged part of our mobile app into Bedrock, which is what we're using with AWS, and it can go off and then take all this information and come back with an answer. It's relatively low it's relatively low cost for us. One of the reasons being is that we cache a lot of the response, and we only call it once per booking. We've not been running it very long, so we're not sure what the costs are yet. But when I was discussing this with the team last week, I think it had been running a couple of weeks, and it cost us about £3.50 or something. It was relatively low numbers. We're controlling the cost through, or we have the ability to control the cost through A/B testing, so we can turn it off or reduce its use as we need to should the cost increase. And we've got monitors and other bits and pieces on that. It's secure by design, so there's no chat interface on it, so you can't, a guest can't come in and use it constantly and the cost runs away or anything like that. It's taking very specific prompts that we have built into our application so that we can control cost and control what we get back. Which actually introduced quite an interesting security issue, because most of us are familiar with SQL injection, where somebody can pass a piece of suspicious data into a database query, and then it brings back data that wasn't intended. So you then have, with AI, you then have the potential of prompt injection, where certain parameters can be sent to the AI, and then you get back stuff that isn't intended. So we've got predefined prompts where we just put in different bits of information, so we can relatively safely call the AI without any of that sort of stuff. And the idea is that we can then drive more revenue on the parks through getting people to engage more in activities, which they are starting to do, but it's very early days in terms of what we're doing with SmartSea. What we're doing with Smart Planner, which obviously uses SmartSea.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what kind of returns have you seen? What have the gains been? But obviously you mentioned it's early days.
It's early day. I haven't got the numbers in front of me, unfortunately. It was a different team. So, but yeah, it's starting to look positive.
No, that's great. And I guess through that process, what sort of have been the lessons learned through this implementation?
So this was our first integration with AI in an actual production system. So obviously we learned how we do that in the first place, and we've learned, as I sort of mentioned, we've learned how to control the costs. So it's been quite new for us. I haven't got all of the learnings back from the team, which is why I'm struggling a bit. You see, Tim.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Vic, I'm going to look at you now for some sort of chime in on any advice that you would give to people looking to sort of integrate AI into the business.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. We've got two really good real-world examples there from Paul and Martin. I think more generally for the audience, if you're looking specifically at the agentic approach, which is really the sort of exciting way of unlocking efficiencies within your business. It's not just pure augmentation of AI functionality into applications, which we can come to later. It's really useful to almost look at agents not so much as software, but as sort of small fractional human resources. You've got a lot of professional expertise within your business, and there'll be a proportion of those people that are actually doing tasks which aren't of great value to what you want them to do on a day-to-day basis. So it's worth looking across departments where there's some value in having them to have assistance to do some of the more menial tasks or the repeatable tasks. And I think that's a really great sort of first step. So don't think of it so much as I need to build something from an AI perspective. Look at it very much as, the professional expertise within your business. Everyone, even people on mid to high salaries, will be doing some things which you can get an agent to actually replicate, repeat, or just completely replace. And I think that just unlocks, the people with the real skills to actually do more of what you need them to do. So definitely that's the first approach you should be taking.
No, that's great. Don't know if you had anything to add there, Paul, in terms of technical advice to people going through the same journey.
Well, yeah. So I'm also conscious of one of the questions in the chat. Although AI isn't an instant 10 times acceleration of what you're doing, when you start using it so we've taken an AI first approach at Haven, which means we expect our engineers to use AI in the first instance to do just about everything. So it does make you more efficient, because there is a lot of stuff that you don't have to do. So you don't necessarily have to write all the unit tests, for example. You can get AI to do that and check it after. But it's also very important to make sure that you check the output from AI as well. So we don't just go build us this application and away Claude goes and comes back and says, here it is. It's very much, you have to check what it's doing at every stage incrementally, like you would when you were writing software usually. And there's a bit of question in the chat about the cost of AI once we've got it into production, but what about the implementation and maintenance and development, those sorts of costs? So we have seen a recent reduction in the size of our engineering team, but we haven't seen a decrease in productivity now that we've adopted AI. So we're starting to be able to do more with less. Certainly in my squad, we are doing we're producing far more features at a greater rate than we were before. And in some cases, the way that AI works and the way it goes off and thinks for a bit, you can work on a number of different things at the same time, which makes you able to vertically scale and horizontally scale in what you're doing at the same time.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Paul. And I must admit, I had my tab on the wrong tab open for the question. So thanks for looking at that question. We might as well pick up the other question there as well. I might direct this one to you, Vic. So what factors, this is from Alex. Thank you, Alex. What factors come into play when deciding to either update a legacy system with AI or completely start again with AI integration? I think that's a good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. I think with legacy systems, I mean, look, AI can benefit legacy systems in multiple ways. Obviously, what's the implication there of just essentially rewriting it? That's potentially much more sort of cost efficient than it would have been 5 years ago. It does obviously depend on the complexity of the system, functionality wise. For very small systems, a complete replacement or an upgrade in the sort of tech stack using sort of LLMs to kind of do that code transpilation is often beneficial. But again, if you've got systems that have got APIs, sometimes it's actually better to augment the system with agents. So, you can have an example, you may have a marketing application that you've built, or a CRM system that you've built. And, going back to that point of having people manually entering those sort of tickets or, new orders, that kind of thing. If your system isn't so old that it doesn't have some kind of sort of RESTful API or some kind of API system at all, we can actually augment it on the surroundings with agents to actually get people to speak to the agent via a command line or via a sort of Teams chat or a Slack bot to actually go away and use the system itself. And that again is really, really exciting from my perspective, because you can actually have your existing systems look at the functionality and they do what they need to do. Just get agents to actually use those systems, and that's a really good approach. Augmenting the system itself, obviously there are ways you can augment an existing system, but there's an element of sort of due diligence around the tech stack to make sure that it's capable of being augmented. But a lot of the times, really, people get very narrowly focused on, I've got a system, augmenting it with AI, specifically adding some kind of chat bot in the corner, that kind of thing, and maybe doing some kind of data analysis and reporting that's more sort of AI driven. The much more exciting process is looking at what that system actually does and seeing if AI can actually use that system for you, and then just produce the outputs that people can verify off and go, that order's perfect, submit, and it's ready to go.
So if I can jump in there,
yeah, please do, Paul. Please do.
One of the things we're finding that's great with AI is that you could just show it a code base, and it automatically understands what it is the system does when it automatically takes some time, what the system does, and it gets all the nooks and crannies and that sort of thing, and you can then ask it about it afterwards. So if you do want to replace a system, it's really good for working out what it was the system did and catching all the corner cases in the first place as well.
I think from a sort of LCH and One Beyond point of view, when we've had, and Tim touched on this earlier, we've been working together for so many years, and our higher hub systems sort of just coming up to being 7, and so trying to instead of just creating a new system, we wanted to use and harness all the sort of system we've built over the last couple of years, but then look to try to add different elements into that. So it wasn't straightforward because it was not initially built to have so many APIs and so many third-party connections coming into it. But as I mentioned earlier on, the virtual agent's now running loads of these tasks. So the best example probably of the automation and the AI piece was to do with driving license checks. So driving license now automatically uploaded. The photograph is then sort of captured. Azure AI document intelligence then sort of looks at that, extracts the information, name, address, expiry date, etc., and then that sort of uses that within the system. I think some of the complications there was that because Azure tends to work with American documentation, the UK driving license wasn't something that was a sort of off the shelf, so that had to be bespoke designed to meet our needs, and also with the private hire PCO licenses as well. And with the AI that we've got running in the back of that, it not only checks to make sure that things like the photograph and the driving license is a high sort of high confidence score, and actually that can be used for official sort of documentation purposes, because we could be subject to fraud and fraudulent driving license fraudulent bookings. But also the Open API GPT model looks and corrects things like a 0, which actually could be mistaken for an O, for instance, in driving licenses. So that was taking an existing system, and it wasn't just the AI bit. We've got some other elements in terms of sort of just automation and just some sort of business logic that got plumbed in to make what was a legacy older system a bit sort of whizzy and obviously to achieve the goal that we've achieved to now. And as Vic said, I think the key is looking at the problem that you've got and you want to solve, and how you can solve that, because it could be in a multiple ways, one of which being AI.
That's great. Thanks for that, Martin. And I guess were there any additional learnings or any advice you might want to pass to anyone that's listening, that's looking at their legacy platforms and thinking about AIing it, for want of a better phrase?
Yeah, I think as I say, the key bit isn't just don't put technology in because put technology in. It's starting with what is the problem, what is the challenge that you want to resolve, and once you understand that problem, you can determine whether it is AI, whether it's intelligent automation, whether it's just business logic. As I say, not every single solution does need AI. For us, we've managed to combine the best of all three outcomes, really, because AI, where human interpretation and reasonings needed, the automation which eliminates that sort of repetitive process of going through some bookings, and then the business logic to get that consistency that can apply across all bookings, and we've got various operational rules and decision-making processes that we factored into that. So I think, as I say, it's really whatever your business challenge is, it's to try and tackle one that's measurable and quantifiable, and then sort of break it into the steps of how you would best approach that. And I think certainly working with One Beyond in this, it's been a case of trying to understand what our business is to help us use technology to find the solution, as opposed to here's the technology and we have to sort of wind back our processes to try and meet that technology. It was done the most sensible way around.
That's great, thanks. Richard's come in with a few questions which I think might be good to explore. Number one is obviously Haven mentioned AWS. LCH, are they also running their AI model in public cloud?
So it's actually sitting in Azure as opposed to AWS. So yes, it is. The LCH system is in Microsoft Azure cloud infrastructure. On the sovereignty side, just to chime in on this, it actually comes up quite a lot. It's something I was going to speak about later. But obviously, Paul and Martin can chime in specifically in their cases. But the open source models have become pretty good over the last sort of six months. So you can actually kind of run edge models now and keep them without any sort of data going out to ChatGPT, Anthropic, OpenAI, that kind of thing. Especially with Mistral, which is a French-based AI model. If you're in the EU, that may be a good case with sort of the EU's AI governance that are coming in, where you can actually just run a Mistral model and have that as an edge case. So if you've got any sort of secure or private client information that you don't want going out to one of the big American players, there's a really good case there, and we can talk about that separately if people want to contact us. But yeah, that's digital sovereignty is a big deal that comes up quite a lot. It was very difficult, because Anthropic and OpenAI are running these big frontier models. They're the ones that have got all of the functionality for doing code generation, that kind of thing. But you can run things like Quen, which is a pretty good model now, and you can essentially self-host it and keep everything self-contained. Paul, I don't know if there's anything you want to chime in on that from Haven's.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much I can say, but I'm aware that when we were looking at who was going to be our provider of AI, what it was they would or wouldn't do with our data was something that we that was very important to us. So we've made sure we've got the guardrails that are necessary.
Thanks, Paul. And Alex there has a question, which I've just lost. There it is. Can one analyze a legacy system that customer may not have back-end access to determine if augmentation is better than a new system? I'm going to chuck that one back at you, Vic.
It would be tricky, but we could certainly we can infer quite a lot from the system, and having a good demonstration of it, and looking at whatever we can look at from the surface. And then as I said, that's a perfect sort of case from a not to put the sales hat on, but from a pre-sales perspective of putting a solutions architect, a tech lead, and a product owner together with you to actually just look at that system and see what we can figure out is the best approach. So it's a how long's a piece of string question, I'm afraid, Alex.
So something that I've been doing recently is getting Claude Code to drive the applications that I'm writing, and some third-party applications. So I expect you would be able to, assuming it was a web application or something similar, to get it to log in and have a poke around and see what was going on. So I think AI could help there as well.
That's great. Thanks, Paul. And I thought we might, just for some of the potentially more technical people in the audience, just touch on where AI is making an impact within the software engineering function itself. I know you had a few words that you might be able to chime in on with that, Paul. Obviously, within your team, it'd be good to just hear what how AI is reshaping the engineering approach, strategy, etc.
Yeah, so at Haven, we adopted AI for our software development about 9 months ago. It started with a group of the team leads. We all had we all got private accounts which were paid for by the company, so that we could work out how it was going to work and whether it'd be useful or not. And over a relatively short period, we were able to demonstrate that it made us more efficient. It allowed us to do more things and to do more things more accurately. So then very soon after that, it was rolled out to the company. As I think I mentioned earlier, we now have an AI-first approach in terms of software development everywhere. It started off quite interestingly. We had some changes that were made, and we just let Claude get on with it. And then something went into production, and very quickly it was shown not to work. And then when we asked Claude about what had gone wrong afterwards, it said, well, yeah, no, these things happened. And it apologized and sort of moved on. So we see quite a lot of that. Something that occurred to me while Martin was speaking about the process of about the business rules within their business. One of the issues with AI at the moment, certainly out of the box, is that it's non-deterministic. So you might ask it the same thing a number of different times and get a number of different answers, but it could be trained relatively easily, so that in certain situations it knows what to do. So we spent a lot of time at Haven building skills and other bits and pieces which we employ all of the time while we're writing software, so it knows how to do things, and we can get deterministic answers where we need it. So I mean, we've certainly discovered at Haven that AI isn't a silver bullet to being more productive and that sort of thing, but it certainly has helped a lot. And we've tried to take people on the journey as well. So we have something at Haven called an AI Corner, which is a general open chat about AI. So interesting things that people find or questions that they've got, they'll go into AI Corner, and then it helps spread the knowledge, and we chat things through and find and find solutions. And also something that we did last year was we had a listen and learn session, which was lightning talks on AI, and everybody from junior software developers right up to our CTO came along and gave a few minutes about what they'd learned about AI and what was happening, and we really found that helped encourage people and make them feel more comfortable to take those first steps into AI. We have got, so you already know about the system that's doing. You already know about Smart Planner, but we've also got another system. So we replaced our caravan cleaning system with one that was generated completely with AI, and that was the first fully AI application that we released, which is in production now, and it's working really well. The people who own Haven at the moment, they're really excited because they've got some similar things that they might want to do with that. And now it's moved away from just being the development team, and we now have new tools which are being written for product owners as well, which has got all the knowledge of our products and various other bits and pieces from Haven in it, so that they can query and use to help generate the features and the issues that we need to solve. And we're also moving into looking at how we can do it more. We use it more with design, and to consistently design things across Haven. That's about it, I think, really. I mean, we certainly embraced AI for software development at Haven. Most of the engineers I've spoken to are really positive about it, really enjoying it. Many of us have personal accounts because we're now playing with it at the weekends and those sorts of things as well. So it's been very positively and well adopted at Haven.
That's interesting to hear. I guess, Vic, how does that kind of marry up with our own approach here at One Beyond on the engineering side?
Yeah, absolutely. Just before move on, Richard's got one more. He had a three-parter, so I'm just going to cover that last one off.
Sorry,
I don't want to leave Richard hanging.
Richard.
Richard, I would say 100% you want separate per process AI agents. It's worth getting in touch, and we can have a conversation around that. So that's a big deal for us, and the way that we're sort of moving forward in the business and how we approach this with our clients is to have individual agents, but more importantly, have some way of actually tracking and looking at how all of your agents are behaving across your business. Tying one big monolithic agent to an expensive model when there may be an agent which actually needs a much cheaper model is the better approach. And as I said, that's something we can touch on later around the sort of cost of some of the frontier models. But back to the point of One Beyond and how we use it. We've made sure that we're augmented with AI across the business. So even at the early pre-sales stages, an obvious one for us is that we're trying to gather requirements to figure out what a client needs as early as possible. So just simple transcriptions, and then using LLMs to summarize those workshop transcriptions and build those into sort of a functional list means that we can get sort of estimates out of the door much quicker. We then move into our discovery process. Same thing applies. We're using LLMs heavily to actually make sure that all of the conversations that are taking place are actually documented, transcribed, and then transformed into sort of good starter for 10 documentation. That's true for the UX team as well. If we're having to do any sort of engineering proof of concepts, of course, AI is great for that. You don't need to worry too much about the code quality at that point. You just want to prove that something can be done. Something that might have taken a week can now take, a day to actually prove that we can do what we need to do. So it's really, really kind of not only accelerated that discovery process, but also allowed us to pack a lot more in and talk much more about a longer term roadmap. And more importantly, gives both sides much more confidence that we can achieve what we want to achieve when we go into delivery. And then as far as the actual sort of delivery process, I won't repeat what Paul said, but essentially the same thing. It's AI first. We give our engineers multiple different coding agents and different IDEs to work with so that they're comfortable. And then we're just constantly monitoring that kind of feedback loop of results and making sure that we're still using the best tool for the job. What was a really good tool for engineers a month ago will be a completely different tool a month later with AI at the moment. So yeah, as I said, it's just about keeping us on our toes and making sure that we're always getting that feedback.
That's great. I think that ties in nicely with Nigel's question, actually. Obviously, if Claude is in your arsenal of tools, there's some concerns there around data residency. What do you, any views on that one?
Well, it goes back to that sort of sovereignty question again. I mean, we have an AI policy, a very in-depth AI policy for the business. I'm sure Paul's got the same at Haven, which, you know, chime in, Paul. Yeah, so when it comes to actually coding, that's fine. This for us, the big, obviously, ISO concern is making sure that we're not putting client information or sensitive information into these models. We're very strict about that. If we do need to use that kind of data, then edge models are much better fit. As I said, you can spin up some GPUs in the cloud and just run a local model still in the cloud and actually just do whatever you need to do at that point without going over to the US companies. Mistral, I mentioned it before, is a EU based cloud service as well. So if you're happy for it to go more into the EU side than it is to go out to the US, that's certainly an option as well.
Thanks, Vic. And we've got one more question from Simon. Thank you, Simon, around the inevitable rise in prices with token costs. What do we think about how we're going to be managing that?
Well, we'll cross that bridge when it comes to it.
Yes,
it's on the tip of everyone's tongue. We'll see what happens with the markets and everything else. I think it all factors into that. Yeah, we don't know for definite. It may be heading in that direction. But long story short, again, these local models are a great example. There are some 36 billion parameter models that you can fit into a 6,000 NVIDIA GPU hosted in the cloud, and that will probably do 70% of what you actually need as a business anyway. And then you're just paying wattage. You're not paying for token costs. It's only really if you need these kind of cutting edge frontier models and the sort of best use cases for those. If you're doing things like image generation, video generation, obviously coding is still something where you still need the cutting edge models. If you're doing sort of quite complex data analysis, then you may want to be going out to sort of Opus 4.85, Fable 5 when we get it back. And there may be some sort of costs around that. But this is the really interesting thing, it's like there's enough models out there on different cost levels that and I touched upon this earlier. The real sort of use case for a business, once you've figured out where the friction is and where you want agents to sit, is actually what's the best model for the job. You can run comparative results. To Paul's point, it is non-deterministic, so you're going to get back different results even if you just run the same model multiple times. But broadly speaking, it doesn't take long for you to get a feel for the fact that actually maybe using the Sonnet model, which is a cheaper model, is actually going to be perfectly fine for your customer services team, as opposed to a cutting edge model that your engineers may need to use.
That's great. Thanks, Vic. I think we've just got a few minutes left, so just kind of finishing on something a bit more broad, offering the audience some practical steps to accelerate AI adoption whilst managing risk. Then we want to pick that one up.
I'm always happy to pick something up, but go for it. I'd much rather hear a client's perspective.
So we're fortunate that we have a platform team that looks after the practicalities of those sorts of things, which enable us to adopt AI. And then because the leaders of the business have completely what's the best way to put it? They're leading from the front with AI. They've asked everybody to start using it and show the benefits and demonstrate the benefits. And as I mentioned earlier, we have the constant feedback loops. So we see what other people are doing, and we get together and we talk about AI. So I think it's a hearts and minds thing as well as it is a technical thing. It's important to, I don't like saying these sorts of things, but it's important to take people on the journey with you, I think, to get the best adoption.
Thanks, Paul. Vic, anything to add to that before we
Yeah, well, just as I said, not to worry too much about repeating myself at this point, but it's the best way of accelerating AI adoption is, as I mentioned earlier, which is just look at your business. Like Martin's touched on this as well. Look at the gaps where you feel agents will be a great fit for something that Maureen may be doing on the front desk, or Steve may be doing in the finance department, and actually just give them 20% of their day back to do some good stuff that you're paying their wages for. Another element as well, which is sort of AI adjacent, if you like. We, from a software development perspective, which is what One Beyond's done for many years now, we've moved very sort of monolithic, and then there was this, we're going to play around with microservices for a round, and then we've gone somewhere with kind of this service orientated architecture, this sort of middle ground. A lot of the time people want sort of digital transformation, they want applications to solve a particular problem, but there's a cost to that. What AI allows me to now, when I'm talking to clients at quite early stages, is to not so much microservices, but micro applications, and be able to actually build quite small, disparate applications using AI in a much more cost-effective way that might actually fit the budget now as well. So again, not just from an agentic perspective, but just look at applications. They may not be AI applications, but we can use AI coding agents to actually now spin up, just a small rapid sales entry system, or just a small ticketing system that you may need. And then once you've got these in, they all have sort of RESTful APIs by default, and then you can start putting agents around those to actually start using those applications, some kind of orchestration layer. So it's a really exciting proposition now. AI is allowing us to build traditional applications very quickly, but then you get AI agents to actually use those applications as well.
Yeah.
Thanks, Vic. And we've got one last question from Donna there around what security people are putting in place in the context of AI.
Do you want to go for that one first, Paul?
So I just reiterate that we've got a platform team that looks after that. We occasionally get guidelines that things that we need to do, but we have a dedicated team that makes sure that we've got the right security in place. I can't give you details because I honestly don't know, but yeah, we have a team that does that.
Yeah, same for us. As I said, we've got a very detailed AI policy. We make sure that everyone's sort of read that policy and it's updated regularly. We only the actual management of who gets access to these agents and models is all very structured and very carefully managed. One of the things that we can do, Donna, if you're concerned about people's general access to things like ChatGPT as an app or Claude on the desktop, is you can actually build out something. For example, Open Web UI is quite a good example where it's a coordinated web interface. So it still uses these models behind the scenes, but you have much more control over who gets access to it and what they can actually even ask. And you can even put sort of system prompts behind the scenes to actually say that you can only give responses in particular ways as well. As I said, there's multiple ways of looking at security. It depends what you kind of mean. If you're talking more on the prompt injection type, then that's the big companies cover that off themselves for the most part. But that's where agents are usually quite good replacements for these general desktop apps. And one of the things I was going to say, certainly for businesses, is try to steer yourself away from some of these local applications where they have local tooling connecting to Excel, and actually move more towards sort of cloud-based agents and models, and just building out sort of web interfaces yourself. As I said, we can help with that and give you sort of the whole business much more management around how people are actually using AI.
Yeah, thanks, Vic. That brings us nicely to the final minute. So firstly, thanks very much, Paul. Thanks, Martin, and thanks, Vic. Everyone who's been viewing, thank you all for joining us. You should have seen some handouts coming out. There's a free AI assessment which you can fill out on behalf of your business, and we'll be very pleased to speak to you off the back of that. We'll be really pleased to connect with you offline. I hope you've enjoyed today's webinar. So thank you everyone for joining.
Pleasure.
Thanks everyone. It's been fun.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.